Hey everybody, Jose Rodriguez here with Men of Impact. Got a really exciting guest. He might not say he's super exciting. He's a pretty humble guy, but what little I know about Mr. James Gettle is pretty awesome stuff. I think, especially in regards to being a man and where we come from and kind of what it takes to get there and those challenges. So really, with that, James, just tell us about yourself. Who you are, how you identify.
Well, honestly, at 40 years old, I think I'm still trying to figure that out. Things are changing, and I'm trying to adapt. And I'm new here to Oregon, so it's just learning the new way of life here.
Sure.
But as you said, I'm James, father of three, married for 12 years. I enjoy it. There's definitely been ups and downs. A lot of stuff I have to work on myself. You've had other guests on here that I'm sure have had harder time growing up than I have, but I have my own struggles and everything. And we've talked a lot about our fathers and the issues we've had as a kid. And, so I kind of fit into that.
Okay. Well, I think difficulty of growing up is always relative. One of the things I gathered, I would say maybe a little over a year ago, listening to, I think it was a book, was, when someone says, and I think it was more specifically speaking to children, but when somebody says, this is the worst day ever, it's true. It's to their perspective, right? My daughter loves to say, this is the best day ever, anytime we're doing anything kind of fun. Because in reality, she's 4 years old and she's not had any amazing, she hasn't had a lot of experiences to draw from. So it's quite easy. Or she's just, and at 4 you forget your past real quickly.
Right.
So relative to difficulty, like everybody, I might think my life was pretty difficult and somebody else might think that, but I can guarantee somebody's come along and you're like, hold my beer. Let me tell you about my story. So there's always that. I really like to pay attention to how people introduce themselves and so you're married, father of three, right? So let's get into who you are a little bit more and you've been married for 12 years and children with all the same.
No. My oldest was with another woman.
Okay.
We were together briefly. He lives back in Vegas with her still. My other two are with my wife.
Okay. How old is he?
15.
Okay. How is your relationship with him now?
I'd like it to be better, but we unfortunately never really had like that bond that I always wanted. And I thought we would when he was little, but he really gravitated toward his mom, and his mom and I are completely different personalities. It just came with a lot of struggles.
Okay. And then you have two other children, right?
Yes.
This is with your wife currently?
Yes.
How are those relationships?
My daughter, it's pretty good. She, I find for my wife that she has a hard time talking to me sometimes though. She's afraid I'm gonna get mad. And, I don't know, with her, I don't feel like I am anything to be scary about. I think with her, as far as I'm concerned, it's more like a tone that that scares her, more than anything. And honestly, I'm not sure why. I try not to get too bad with her.
How about your youngest one?
The baby, he's something. He's kind of a back and forth thing right now. It's just going to bed. Some days he wants mama, some days he wants me, sometimes he wants both of us at different times at the same bedtime. So he's pretty much all over the place.
My 2-year-old's the same way. Most of the time wants mama. Once in a while, daddy gets preferred. or he'll want me, and then mom says, okay, I'm gonna go take advantage and go do something else. And he's like, no, well, no, I want daddy, but not without you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's understandable. So one of the things that really stood out from our last 4 episodes that was fairly correlated was fatherhood and reflections to our own upbringing by our fathers or maybe lack thereof, and I think you have a really unique story to that. And tell us about your father and growing up in that environment.
So when I was 6 years old, my dad had gone out with a buddy and hit a bar for a while. We lived kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and a good 45 miles from any establishment. And he made it 44 of those miles back before falling asleep in his car. And went off into the desert, rolled it, I think they said like 8 times, wasn't wearing a seatbelt, from what I understand, the door opened, he started to fall out, door came shut, crushed his pelvis, opened back up, and then threw him out. My mom was actually an EMT at the time and got called to the scene. And when she realized that it was him, she just stood there, couldn't do anything. After that, we got him to the hospital in Las Vegas and worked on it, kept him alive and everything. Told my mom that he wasn't going to survive. The week went by, he survived. He said, okay, well, he's going to be a vegetable for the rest of his life. As the time went by, he woke up and started talking. So they did what they could for him there, and then he got sent to San Diego. San Diego, he went into a coma. When they got him out of the coma, got him back awake again. I don't have a whole lot of memory about this, but I'm told that he would pin me in the corner, in a wheelchair, push me up and start screaming, and not anything that he ever did as a kid. It's just, but then when he was starting, you could make coherent conversations with him. He remembered nothing about me. He remembered nothing about my mom. Only his previous marriage and his life back in Illinois. Anyway, they got him as far as they could, and then he was sent to St. George, where they got him up and walking and all that, and it was just more of a nursing home kind of deal.
How old were you at the time?
Let's see, I was probably
Throughout all this.
that was, so I want to say he spent a year in Vegas, a year in San Diego, and then ended up in St. George for a while. Probably until 90, all this started in 88, so I think it was maybe 93 was when he finally left St. George and went back to be with the rest of my family back in Illinois.
So you were how old? About
Somewhere around 9, I think.
okay.
When all
Yes.
this was.
So, do you have a pretty good memory? Because I mean, we generally say in behavioral that most children don't have much memory or can't really hold long-term memory until about the age of 4. So we'll say this happened. Maybe you were about 7 when it started, right? Or when the accident.
I was 6 in the
Okay. So you had a couple potential years. Do you think you remember much of him before that?
Just a little bit. I remember riding around on a quad, going through the desert and stuff, and he worked up at a alfalfa farm. And so we went up and drove through all the fields up there and stuff, and we'd gone up into the mountains again on the 4-wheeler. But aside from that, there wasn't a whole lot.
But
Not until later.
But he was up until at least age 7 or 6. he was still a significant role in your life, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that kind of in theory, you know, behaviorally we like to say that we've set our child's character, and we're almost done parenting by age 7. So he potentially had a good impact in your development early when it's most important, and but clearly then post 8 years old, you don't have much of a dad. Yeah.
My mom ended up getting remarried, and so I had
How old were
my
you then?
stepdad. Ooh,
Roughly.
maybe 11.
Okay, so pre-pubescent, but getting close to becoming a teenager.
I mean, he was around a little bit before that. But,
Okay. How'd that relationship?
That was not a good relationship. Nothing physical. We argued all the time.
Yeah.
He would get mad because I didn't eat something on my dinner plate. And he'd get mad at me and start yelling at me, and then my mom would start yelling at him. And then he'd storm off and leave, and then she'd come to me and be like, he was right. Like, yeah, I know.
I have the experience of having a stepdad the majority of my life, and certainly my stepdad wasn't. I mean, he would punish me, he would spank me, he would, right when he saw me do something, would certainly, and he kind of ruled with an iron fist, almost literally, and and then I would hear him and my mom fight about me, and and put her in difficulty, and I give him some leeway nowadays as an adult because of I'm a stepdad myself, and have gone through a few challenges where stepson wanted me to be a significant part, and then when I tried to be, actually not having any boys prior to that, or not just having my own past experience, and say, okay, well, this is how we're going to do things then, and it was like, whoa, no, never mind that, like, and it's that can certainly be a challenge. I can appreciate it from both ends. It's not easy. Tell us then how, if you didn't have a strong relationship, so we could probably maybe guess, and you can tell us if we're wrong, that there wasn't a lot of fatherhooding going on post that. Were you able to patch any type of relationship with your stepdad to I mean, I think about, like, for me, like, I learned manly things, like I learned how to hunt and fish. I learned how to tinker on a car a little bit, and and certain catchphrases, certain things I think about that I still say today, like don't do anything half-ass, or bend over and get some hair up your ass. It was very big on work ethic, and I think I certainly gained that from him. So just as an example, tell us, like, what did you get from it?
I think a lot of the issues that he and I had when I was younger was him trying to make me into a better person in the future. And as a preteen and teenager, I wasn't having that. But looking back, we didn't do a whole lot of stuff together. He made some attempts for sure, but I think when I gathered most of it, he wasn't extremely handy, wasn't good with cars or anything like that. But I kind of had that already in my background from my dad. Like, he was very, mechanically savvy. But I think what I gathered from it was my stepdad, even when he didn't know how to do something, he still tried. He tried to figure it out. Didn't always work out, sometimes made things worse, but he still tried to
give it a go,
to do it for the family. Because we didn't have a whole lot of money to have somebody come out and fix, especially where we lived. It was a huge fee. So I ended up watching everything. But growing up, looking back, like, he did everything he could to make sure we were okay.
Do you think you appreciate him more now than you did as a teen, or?
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
And the funny thing was, is like the moment I turned 18 and moved out like the next month.
Yeah.
When that happened, like our relationship totally changed, and everything was good. And you know, I was, even though I wasn't biologically his, but I was like his
Yeah.
friend.
Sure. Nice.
You know, and he was always talking about how proud he was of me
Yeah.
of doing this and doing that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I used to get that from my stepdad too. Once I moved out, I think there's something primal about, I think, being a stepdad, and good and bad, because like I think about it from an animalistic, true primal standpoint. Most males in the mini species, when they come upon a female with offspring, they kill them. Like, it's common. Like, I have to separate. Like, I raise pigs, and you know, I have more than one boar in there, and if mama has some piglets and that boar doesn't, you know, they want, as soon as the pigs are gone and weaned, you know, mom's ready to go again, and that other boar can easily, you know, kill those piglets. So there's some weird, and yeah, it can be very dark, I guess, in that sense. But I'm not saying that we clearly want to kill the offspring, but I think that there's this innate, like, you know, challenge to raise another person's child, another man's child, right?
Yeah.
And then obviously, shoot, even with my own children, I get less of my wife's attention, far less, right? Like, I mean, we all men here with children can understand that if our wives doted over us like they do our boys and our children, we'd be kings. I'm like, I tell my wife, I'm like, you know, when she's, you know, my little man's her king. Like he, dude, if she would treat me like that, I'd be like, oh man, I'd probably have a massive head. Or
somehow we ended up the jester.
Yes. You know, or I feel like I'm more the gopher. Like, just, you know, get this, go for that, you know. But yeah, and so that can be the challenge, right? And it's great to hear, because I like to think that I can certainly see where me and my stepson are developing a better mutual respect for each other. And he's 17 now. He's got a year out of a year from being out of the house, truly, and you know, and he's got a job now and starting to see what life is like a little bit, and I really kind of parented from I was mom's backbone when she needed one type of thing. She, you know, if we saw something, she dealt with it, and I just, because I would be right in there, probably a little more too stern and firm, but you know, so that's good to hear. Tell us a little bit about you as a man, you know, and you know, is there anything specific that you think you struggle with? Like you said, you're at 40, you're still trying to find yourself. I mean, which, when I was 20, I'd be like, dude, you haven't figured it out yet? But at 44 myself, like, I'm like, yeah, I'm only halfway there-ish, right? You know, we live into our 80s, I'm halfway there. I still got a lot of life yet to do. And I do think I've gotten close. You know, I have a pretty good idea now. And I'm just putting the things in place. What do you think you missed out on, if anything, in your fatherhood?
As far as my dad goes?
Yeah, take it however.
So one of the biggest things that I've always been upset about is, when I was little, my brothers are a little bit older than me, and my dad would go out hunting all the time, and he'd always take them with him. I was too young to go. Then he had his accident, and so I never got that opportunity to do it. And you know, we lived out in Nevada, where it's a lot of desert, so it's not anything convenient to go hunting. And so now, as I've talked to you before, just recently I'm trying to get into hunting unsuccessfully. but you know, I do enjoy it.
Yeah.
But the struggles now is that, you know, I have a family now and I have very little time.
Mhm. Yeah,
So.
it's hard. It's definitely hard at the later stage when you've got a family, especially. And I'm sure Garrett can probably chime into this in his own aspect of when we're trying to pick up something new. There's a lot of what I want to say downtime, but that's not quite it. A lot of learning. That unsuccessful, like you go out hunting, you know, a lot, and you come back with nothing, and it's just a constant, you know. Whereas, you know, I grew up hunting, fishing, you know. I think, you know, I do mostly just duck hunting now, and you know, I'll go out maybe 10 times through the season, and maybe I come back once without anything, you know. But I've had, you know, years, you know, from probably at least 10 years old when I started to you know, into my early 20s, where I had a stepdad, you know, teaching me the ropes and explaining and learning, and you know, getting to make the mistakes early so I didn't make them late, or just somebody there to say, you know, that you at least trusted enough to say, you know, make sure you do this, make sure you do that, don't do this and don't do that. And then you almost get a bypass. It's almost like a cheat code. It's like those cheat codes, old, you know, old Nintendo days, right? You get a cheat code where you get a few extra lives, or you know, you get a bump up, you know, to a couple of stages ahead, and you don't have to work through that. So that's certainly nice. Tell us about yourself as a father. How do you feel as a father? How you're doing? How's it going for you?
I definitely have some anger issues that after our last talk I've been really trying to work on and try to keep a level head and everything, because I have a tendency sometimes I'll just kind of blow up. And I was like, I'm done.
What's a blow up for you? Just raising your voice, or
raising the voice, and knowing I'm being way too hard. You know, when I know, I just feel like I'm getting way too hard on the kids, especially. You know, just that I have to realize they're kids. You know, you can't expect everything to go perfect all the time.
Yeah.
And just getting frustrated. You know, sometimes just an inconvenience. That's it. It's nothing more than an inconvenience. But I've really been trying to work on that and not get so angry so easily. I don't know where I was going with that.
How do you think that, or I guess rather, where do you think that comes from? Like, is it have you put a finger on it yet?
Well, my mom would probably say because I'm Irish. My whole family, especially that side of the family, has anger issues.
Yeah.
So
Just are you? Would you say more of a short fuse?
probably,
Okay.
yeah.
You know, so is it things that you just come upon and you're like, what are you doing? And just kind of over take it to a little bit more of an extreme. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. It's really tough. I can certainly speak to thinking that I probably, and maybe even Garrett too might say, I don't know. I don't know if it's because, you know, again, not having, you know, the best of parents either. I don't know that it's anything specific to lack thereof or bad parenting. It's I think it's the learning process of being a parent. You know, I remember with my first child, before we had kids, and people asking, I was married for, you know, 9 years, and didn't have a child for the first 7. People started asking, what are you waiting for? And we're just like, until we're ready, and comment, well, you'll never be ready. And I didn't understand that until after I had one. I was like, yeah, you're absolutely right. At that point, you know, I didn't have my master's degree. I was working on it, but I'd done a lot of behavioral therapy already as a technician, and thought I could kind of deal with kids, and I would work with kids that had the biggest behaviors and biggest outbursts, and I could handle because they weren't mine. But then you have your own, and you walk into these, like, what in the world are you doing? And they're your own, and I don't know if it's just having expectations of my own genetics and children, and like, my children are gonna be better. I'm sure we've all said that to our parents, and they're like, oh, you just wait till you have one just like you. And I'm like, nah, you know, I'm gonna be better. My kids are gonna know, like, and that's just, it just doesn't go that smooth. But one of the things that I could give, I guess, an advice in that situation is, you know, knowing that we snap, right? Garrett, do you snap sometimes?
I snap.
Okay, so we all snap, you know. Granted, though, none of us have ideal fathers, but what I'm learning from the last two guests is that who did have great fathers, they also had great relationships they have great relationships with their children, right? Didn't both of them seem to have that? Would you agree?
Awesome relationships.
Yeah, and they both have great relationships with their fathers. So I'm trying to learn from that, because there's not crap we can do about our previous, you know, with our fathers or lack thereof. But if we can build that relationship with our children will build their relationship with their children well, right? That's what I'm trying. I'm trying to break that cycle, at least in what I'm gaining from it. And I think when I snap, when I take a consequence maybe too far, I try to be humble and admit it. If it's anything, just if it's to myself, then I go back to my child and I say, you know, look, I'm really sorry, sweetheart or buddy, you know, whichever one I'm talking to, and say, you know, I don't like getting mad at you. I don't even want to have to punish you. I don't want to have to spank you. I don't want to have to put you in a corner. Whatever it is, I said, you know, if it's a thing that we can work on, like, but I need to make sure you don't do these things. I want you to do this, and I don't, you know, do you understand? And just have that conversation, but don't be afraid to apologize. Say, I'm sorry that I lost it. I got a little too upset. You scared me. It frustrated me, and I think that if we can teach our children that we're humble, they're humble, right? The biggest, I say biggest, but it's one of the big things, is children learn from what they've caught, not what they're taught. So you can tell your child till you're blue in the face, whatever it is you want. You can try to mold them verbally. Very little of that seep through as comparative to how you are, how you live. Your son and even your daughter are going to model after what they see in front of them, you and your wife. You know, your daughter's learning from your wife what it is to be a female, right? And all of that as time goes on. And she's learning from you what to expect from a male, right? And so for you, that's something that, you know, you got to keep in your back pocket and you got to think about. And I think it goes a long ways. If I can show my daughter that I got humility and say, look, sweetheart, I'm sorry. I didn't, you know, I shouldn't have said that, or I shouldn't have raised my voice. You know, I got to work on that, and I apologize, you know. And it'll probably help your relationship for sure, but minimally, she will then come to expect that from any males that she lets into her life later on. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, and I have been doing that.
Good.
My wife, I actually have to thank for that, because she's actually pushed me to do that more. The problem is that
swimming's boring.
she
They're better at it. They do it naturally.
the funny thing though is that I get mad at my daughter, say, and something that's just infuriating me, but I took it too far. And Peyton will go and, off the room or something, and my wife will tell me, you need to go apologize that you took it too far. I'm like, I'm not ready yet.
Yeah.
I need to, you need to have that
When-
time. She wants me to go right then. And
Even
I
then,
can't
you
do
don't.
that.
It's not always an apology, right? Because maybe, just maybe, whatever it is you lost your cool over is important to you and is significant, right? Because we're raising our children in a perspective of what we think we want them to become. Not, I don't think any of us are exactly what we want our children to be, right? I'm not. I don't think I could say, I'm proud of some of the things I've accomplished. I would love my child to do some of the things I've done, but not everything. I want them to be better than me, right? And so I think it's okay to not necessarily be wrong, but still go in there and be apologetic, right? You can say, look, you did this wrong. This is not what I want from you. But I am sorry that
To
I-
that level.
was hot about it. But this is right. But now this is Daddy's hot button. I'm not gonna back down on this, sweetheart. I want this from you, and I want that from you. That's my expectation. But children don't understand the difference between good and bad attention. They just know attention.
Right.
And children want that. We're a communal species. And what happens when we teach them, if most of her interactions with you are of that, like you're always getting on her, then she develops that. She'll actually, it's an odd thing, subconsciously they'll start doing bad stuff because that's what gets your attention the most. So you don't always have to go into the room and be like, look, I was wrong. Just look, these are the problems, and I am sorry I lost my temper a little bit, but I still love you. That's the biggest part of that, is just making sure you're still in trouble. Oh, you're still grounded, whatever. But I love you, right? And it verbally, physically, just hugs, whatever. You're still, but you're staying in your room. That's a big part, I think. Makes a big difference. So I think we can draw a clear distinction and correlation between having fathers, having struggles as being fathers, because you're trying to lead by what example did you have, right? And not much, and so that can be the challenge. What about your relationship with your wife?
We've always, of course, had ups and downs, like in a relationship. I think it's okay though. And again, I've been trying to dial my temper down, and that's helped a lot. That was our biggest problem. Was tempers in the past. Not that I'd ever be any, physical at all. But,
Sure.
just
Do you
again,
feel
of
you
course,
struggle with anything personally?
as far as
Your relationship with your wife?
I'll say right now it's, as I said, I've gotten older. I'm trying to find myself, and she's wanting me to be with the family all the time, and I'm learning new things and wanting to try this and try that I didn't get to try when I was younger. And being 40, I'm at that point where stuff's not working quite as well as it used to, and so now I have that in the back of my mind, like, how long am I going to be able to do this? How much time do I have before I can't do anything anymore? Maybe a little midlife crisis thing going on there. But,
Sure. Well, from a physiological standpoint, having background in that as well, that's going to be more of a reflection of lifestyle than age.
Right.
It correlates to age because as we get older, we just start living a different lifestyle. However, there are plenty of men in their 40s and 50s that are still doing phenomenal feats athletically, physically. But that comes from, and granted, it will be, for you to start something physical now will just be a little harder to start. Right? It's a little bit more of a ramp up than than you if you were 20. But once you get it there, right? Maintain it. You'll be able to maintain it a lot better. But you're definitely right. If you wait till you're 50 to start something physical, that ramp's even higher.
Right.
Doesn't mean you still can't get to the top, but it's just a little bit steeper of a ramp. So yeah, and I think that one of the things that we have to do as men, I'm not going to say it's just men, it's people in general, is that me time, right? So I think as men, this is going to come off a little more macho. I'm the man. I'm the alpha. But you have to put your foot down and you have to say, look, you want the best husband in the world? Children, you want the best dad in the world? I need to be the best me. Like, that's just absolute, right? And then you got to do for you whatever you believe is going to help you be the best you, right? But if you're always sacrificing yourself, you start to lose yourself. And then the animosity starts to brew, even if it's mostly subconscious. You're like, oh, I never get to do that. I never got to do that. I never get to do that. And like, I can see it just in my children getting to do stuff in there. I was like, I never got to do that as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
And then you don't see where they appreciate it. They don't acknowledge. Every once in a while, my daughter's really kind of cool in a way because she'll ask like, Daddy, did you ever get to do this? I was like, no, sweetheart, I never got to do that. My parents couldn't afford that. It wasn't even an option. Oh, Dad. And you can see she seems to have a little bit. I mean, she's 4, but she seems to have a little bit better of an appreciation for it. So that goes a long ways for me. But it's really, really important. I think it's important for wives too. But for us as men, you gotta put your foot down. You gotta do some man things. How much, what, all dependent on whatever it is. If you believe, look, babe, I gotta go out and I gotta hunt, I gotta kill, I gotta, do that. I gotta come in here and I gotta be a man and I gotta fight. I gotta strangle some dudes. I gotta take a 20-year-old and throw him to the ground and feel like it might sound barbaric, and it probably generally is, but that's in our innate species. We are a culturally driven species. We are communal, and there's hierarchies, right? There's if you watch wolves, a pack of wolves are very similar. The little wolves are always coming up trying to test the alpha. You'll see the dad wolves smacking their cubs around right away, so there's a little some of that. I'm not advocating smacking your children around, but rough them up. They like it. Believe it or not, like physical. Play roughhousing with your kids. It's fantastic. But it doesn't have to stop us kids, right? That's why we have jiu-jitsu. We can keep doing it for the rest of our lives. But what I'm saying is with your wife and even with your daughters is it, and it's a real easy deduction, I think, to say if you're the happiest you can be, don't you think it's pretty easy to be a good dad?
Oh, absolutely.
And a good husband, right? So I'm a big advocate for this. And my wife likes to put it in my face a little bit. She's like, "You're really good at taking personal time." I said, "Yes, I am." I said, "One, because I'm a coach and I coach this stuff. But the same time as she knows, I'm also really good at telling her to do it. I'm like, go. Let me take the kid. and sometimes she's just losing her mind because the house is a mess as far as she's concerned. You know, I think it looks fantastic and clean, but you know, that's me as a man. And I'll say, and I'm like, I'm going to practice for me, but I'll take the kids with me. I'll take the kids, and then she can do her thing and just have her own time, you know, and you know, or I'll like, you know, go have lunch with a friend, that sort of thing, you know, because what you'll find is then it's your wife will be a little more accepting too. When's the last time you made your wife go out and do some me time, or had to? Sometimes some wives are better at it too. So, yeah. So I mean, that's just some advice. I think, you know, but as a man, you know, do you, and I'm not even specifically going to say roles here as I mean, we're typically a father. You're also a brother. Let's talk about that. How do you feel you are as a brother? You're the baby brother.
I'm the
right?
baby brother. Yeah.
Do you have a good relationship with your brothers?
One of them for sure. Another one just contacted me the other day, so we're trying to work through some stuff with my family back there regarding my dad and all that.
Yeah.
The problem with
Is your dad still alive?
Oh yes.
Okay.
Yes, he's in a nursing home in Illinois.
Okay.
But I just got a letter about a month ago from my uncle, who's been like his financial like executor.
Sure.
Saying that he's not doing well. That, you know, he's got a lot of medical problems now, and I don't know how much longer he's gonna be on. He's up on. He was in a nursing home. They put him up on a more of an intensive care floor.
When's the last time you saw your father?
Probably 15 years ago.
Oh, wow. That's gotta be tough. I think one of the things I think about, like, because my wife has a difficult relationship with her father, but and she'll complain about it and that sort of thing. I like a lot of times I tell her, I'm like, but you know what he looks like. You know him. You know. I said, I don't even know what mine looks like. You know. But then I think about that and I'm like, is that better? You know. Like I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of like listening to you. I'm like, gosh, man, there's some comfort. I mean, my dad could be dead. My dad could be, you know, suffering somewhere. Could be having a rough life. I don't know, you know. But so I struggle more with curiosity than actual pain. But you've seen your dad. Yeah. You know your dad. You've had a relationship or had one. So that can be pretty tough, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah. After the accident, I was going to bring this up earlier. I couldn't see him for a long time while I was in there, and
was it the safety issue? Because you said he was getting you back.
Well, he was no. This was like right after the accident.
Oh, okay.
So before he woke up or anything, you know, they had to intubate him and all that stuff.
So they just didn't want you to see him like that.
They wouldn't allow kids in that area at all. So I told my mom, I know he's dead. I know he's dead. You know, and so she actually had to take a picture and bring it to me, and so she gave me this picture and these tubes and everything all hooked up to him. You know.
Do you still remember that today?
I don't remember it. I do have the photo though.
Okay.
I came across it a while back, but I can only imagine that for a 6-year-old that was traumatizing.
Sure.
And then shortly after that, they started letting me up so I could just watch him through a window, and I would do that for hours, just stand out and watch him. I spent a lot of time in hospitals growing up. You know, when it all said and done, you know, he was brain damaged. Mentality of about an 8 to 12-year-old, maybe.
I had that.
I think we all do at times.
Yeah.
But you know, he back in Illinois, you know, he kind of made a life. My grandma built him a house, so he was able to live on his own for a while.
Oh wow. Okay.
Got a little job at like at a local market, like stocking shelves and stuff, and even worked at Red Lobster cleaning dishes.
Well, do your brothers have a relationship with him now or post that? Because they were older. How much older were they?
My youngest brother is 9 years older than me,
Okay.
and my oldest is 14 years older than me.
So one was almost an adult at that time, right? Then,
Yeah.
and the one was a teenager. So
All half brothers, so two of them
Okay.
from my mom, two of them from my dad.
okay, did they have a from your dad? Did they go on to have much of a relationship after that, or was it pretty distant for them?
I know my one brother does go and see him at the hospital all the time. The other one, I don't know, I think he calls him every once in a while, but doesn't really have much of a relationship, really with anybody. I don't even have a relationship with him. I haven't talked to him in probably 20 years.
Oh wow.
My other two brothers from my mom, I talk to kind of regularly.
But you grew up with those ones, yeah?
For the most part, they, when I was still kind of young, probably just getting into high school, maybe they had moved back to Illinois.
Okay.
So I would only see them like in the summers when I go
Sure,
back.
sure. But growing up in in a relationship, did any of them play a role as in who you are now, or?
It's funny you say that because I was just.
Because I'm just
talking
thinking,
with
like
my
older brothers, like can older brothers play the role, right? Like, especially if they're older, right?
Yeah. My youngest brother, the one that's 9 years older than me, it's funny that you bring this up because I was actually just talking to one of my other brothers about this just the other day. When I was younger, he had a lot of issues. Drugs, getting arrested, drinking, stealing, all kinds of stuff.
This is from your mother's side, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
But I remember him like pulling me aside one time, and he's like, "If I ever find out you're doing any of this stuff, I'm gonna come here. I'm gonna kick your ass." And that stuck. And so I really tried to stay on the straight and narrow through my whole life, and I really bring it back to that particular moment.
Okay.
And I was probably, I don't know, 12.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Nice. But also you probably at that point then there on you also saw how he struggled with it, right? So you're getting firsthand, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of times for me, like I had a pretty good life till I was probably 9. That's when my life really took a dump, and so I was fairly set as a kid. But then when my life took a dump and I started to see my mom have problems with drugs and alcohol, and my stepfather and all the relatives that did, and I could visually see I was like, well, clearly that's not working out. That's not a good option. So I think that was helpful. One of the things that makes me think about, like maybe in regards to your brother, but other men in your life, did you have other men that played a significant role? Because I feel what helped me get through a big part of that bad patch of not having the best example at home was having an example elsewhere. Like I had great coaches that some of them definitely stepped out, and I think that's probably why I take coaching so seriously, because for a couple of my coaches giving me a couch, a bed, a house, a roof, a dinner, a meal, a couple bucks, a ride, I don't know that I would have stayed on the right path, or I wouldn't say I definitely got off the right path a few times, but they were there to help me ride back on. But did you have anything like that?
I don't think so. Other than my stepdad, because he was there from early on, and he's still in my life now.
All right. So that's awesome. That's actually really kind of a positive thing to hear. Is your stepdad's a significant role now.
Yeah.
Right. Because I think that for men, like we need that. Like that's kind of where the name of Impact for me stuck, because though our academy is called Impact, and I didn't create the name, we're an affiliate of Overall Impact. And for the 10 plus years I trained with Impact before having my own academy, it didn't ever hit me like that. Like it was just called Impact. I thought more of an impact like my fist to your face impact. But now owning an academy and then creating this as Men of Impact, I was like, we're making impact, right? We're, the younger generation below us is looking at us Like, hey, these are the men. This is what I'm going to become, even if they don't know it yet. That's what they're doing, right? When they come to a crossroads and have to make a decision, they're going to reflect on what they've gathered, right? What they saw. Well, I saw my dad at this crossroads, and this is what he did, so that's probably what I should do. Or my dad told me about this crossroad. You know, this is kind of what I'm looking for more, because I feel like I came to a lot of crossroads and went the wrong way. And gosh, I'm looking forward to my boy getting to those crossroads and being like, look, I see you're headed this way. I'm just gonna say, you know, like your brother did, said, look, you know, you have a problem with this, right? You know, and so I think that's helpful. How do you feel? Tell us how you feel as a man. Like,
I'm trying to change myself. You know, I grew up very low self-esteem. Every time I want to say something, like I had to play it through my head 15 times to make sure I didn't say something that was gonna make me get laughed at.
how'd you get a wife?
I don't know.
No, I'm just kidding. she asked you out, didn't she?
No.
I'm just kidding. I'm just teasing. Yeah.
Let me lose my train of thought.
Confidence. You were talking about
Yeah.
confidence, playing things through your head, and tell us some more about that.
Yeah, I just so I was always like the wallflower. I never had that confidence to do anything.
Yeah.
And so now with my kids, it's like I'm seeing that, and that's where some of my biggest frustrations are. As I see that, and then I'm like, no, I did that. Don't do that.
Yeah.
You know, it's you gotta be bold. Don't be afraid to speak up. You know, that's how I always was.
So you said, and you mentioned that's where your frustration comes from, and you feel like are those instances you spoke of earlier that you probably come out a little strong with when you see those things, or
I don't know about those ones in particular.
Okay.
It's just stuff. You know, my daughter is absolutely awesome. She doesn't do a whole lot wrong, you know, but I see, like I said, the things that I wish I could have changed about myself when I was younger, and so I get on her about that. Like, don't sweat these little things. You know, don't get so dramatic about these little things that it doesn't matter. But I know, you know, in her 10-year-old mind, you know, that's like,
well, these are
the
big
worst thing
things,
in the
though,
world.
right? Yeah. So, you know, our scope of life, we can say we can easily draw it for what matters. So what I'm gonna say is rather than telling her they don't matter, recognize they matter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So for her, they matter. They're big. That's her worst day ever. She comes home from school with a social problem, like, oh, my life is ruined. Like, you know, don't discount her feeling by saying it doesn't matter. Like, it matters, right? Obviously, because she's, you know, and console her and say, you know, you can give her some comfort to know that one day it won't matter as much as it matters today, right? You'll almost laugh at it later, right? So because we don't want to discount other people's feelings, because that's something that's been really tough for me as a coach over the years, especially if something I teach fighting and like I've been fighting my whole life. I had tons of playground fights and street fights before I became an official fighter, and you know, I get students who come in with banged up toes and knees, and you know, and I'm like, all right, this is tough for you. I get it. You know what I mean? And then I have to weigh in. I'm like, well, but there's gonna be tougher things. If this is, you know, we're gonna have to push through this, right? I've had that a few times, you know, where I've had to just, you know, I get it. This is hard for you. This is tough, but knowing in my head, so I'm not discounting the pain you're going through, and I'll even tell students sometimes, I'm like, I can't tell you if you're in that much pain, like, because they're saying, I don't know if I should quit, I don't know if I should stop or whatever. What do you think? And I'm like, I don't know that. I don't know about what if this is the worst pain you've ever felt, kind of thing. I can tell you, I fought with a broken tongue. You know, I fought with a broken rib. You know, I've just had to keep going. And so ultimately, I don't discount how they hurt. I don't discount, but I can pull from them like, it's gonna be okay. I can tell them either to keep pushing or, nah, I've had this. Sit down. You're gonna have to give it a couple weeks because the pain will go away. And then when the pain goes away, then you can make sense?
Okay.
So that all that stuff's pretty awesome. I think that you know, we're wrapping up. It's been about an hour, and not to say, I mean, you have a really cool story, and I think that you have a wonderful family, right? Everybody has a unique story, I think, and all from a perspective. You have a unique background. The fact that you didn't have a traditional fatherhood overseeing your development, and you still come out to be, from what I can tell, and I think I'm a fairly good judge of character, you're a good man. You're a good man and you have great intention, and that ultimately is what matters. It's all about our intention. It isn't so much the outcome, right? And this is what you're gonna see, like when you see your daughter or your son go out and attempt things, where their confidence is gonna come is to know that they gave it their best. They really tried, and that's what we can ask a lot, because nothing hurts worse than regret.
Right.
Bones will break and they will heal. Muscles will tear and they'll mend. But regret never does. Never. Like, if you look back and I wish I would have done that, that moment has passed and will never come back. You can later try to recreate the moment, right? But I don't know about you, but it's like me trying to, my child will do something awesome or say something. Oh, hold on. Say it again. Do it again. And they'll do it, but it wasn't as good as the first time, right? That's that, right? So, I commend you. I think you're a really stand-up dude, and you're heading in the right direction. Ultimately, you still have at least half your life left, probably, if all goes well and you take care of yourself. You know, you live to 80, but then this is how I like to think of things, right? Your first half of the current life you've had, right? You were a child for the majority of it, right? So at least the first 18, right?
Yeah.
You were completely dependent on your environment and those adults.
Mm-hmm.
The last, and then you spent the last, 20 kind of figuring things out, right? And making decisions, making mistakes, learning from those, all that kind of stuff. And now you've got 40. So if you look at it in that span, you got a lot of life to go. You've only lived 20 years, I'll say. As in, you've only been behind the wheel for 20. Does that make sense? And now you're behind the wheel for another 40, right? You start being the steward, right? I don't think it's ever too late. This is one of the things I'm starting to realize myself too is okay, maybe I didn't have a great, fantastic father, or childhood or whatever, but it's not too late to start learning from other men, right? I think that's kind of what my goal from the Men of Impact meeting that we had, and the group that we do. I want other men to learn from other men. Like, I want to learn from Garrett's mistakes and his triumphs. I want to learn from your mistakes and your triumphs. I want to share with you my mistakes and my triumphs, so that when I run across, I've got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, but Garrett has a 8 and 10?
9 and 11.
9 and 11. I was close. They were 8 and 10 when they started. He's going through peaks and valleys I haven't yet to get through. So I'm watching him, I'm learning, right? You know, how old are you? Yours are 2 and
2,
And-
10, and 15.
2, 10, and 15. So you got a few too, right? I'm watching these things, and we can kind of figure out, like, learn from each other. Oh, this is what I did. This is how it turned out. You know, and I think it's not too late. We didn't, you know, and I'm kind of excited for my next 40. Right? I really am. Like, I'm optimistic because I'm behind the wheel now, damn it. And I've had 20 plus years of screwing it up, fixing it, making it right, you know, and some of those mistakes still haunt me to this day. And I think, you know, I look forward to that, you know, and I think that's kind of the goal for hopefully this podcast too, is because I saw this opportunity and this benefit in our little group meetings that we get every once in a while. We get together and we share and we learn from each other. And misery loves company, kind of, in the sense that, like, I love to hear another dad bitch and moan about his struggles, not because it makes me feel bad, inferior or superior or anything like that. It just to know that I'm not alone.
Oh, yeah.
I am not the only one.
Perspective is a powerful tool.
100%. And when you hear, I gave my question, I had a question for my wife the other day, and I said, do you have any skeletons in your closet? So I'm going to ask you guys this. Do you guys have any skeletons in your closet? Things that nobody else knows.
My closet's full.
Oh, yeah.
And I want to say, and I asked her, I said, do you have any skeletons? And she's like, and I mean, when I say skeleton, I mean, there's not a soul in this world alive that knows it. And my wife initially said no. She was like, what? I was like, oh. She's like, do you? And I was like, yeah, I have a few things that I'll probably die. I'll take to the grave, but nobody else will know. Nobody found out, and I'm going to keep them with me because they are things that I regret, feel awful for, would never do again, but they're dying with me. She said no. She later recanted the next day, but after giving it, she had to think about it for a while, because what happens is when something horrible happens to us, when we do something horrible, the mind is amazing. It will help us forget. Put it away. Stuff it away. And I'm spending a lot of time digging that stuff up right now because I'm going to do a retreat and help me work through some stuff. But I think that it struck me when she said she didn't. I felt that was the lowest I'd felt in a minute. I was like, wow, am I the only? And I came. So the first few people I saw the next morning, and I asked them the same question, and they said, oh, absolutely. Okay, I'm not alone. So we really enjoy having that company to know when we're struggling, we're not the only one. So you're not the only man at 40 still trying to figure it out, having some of those battles. The best thing you can do is reach out to the fellow man next to you. You know, I think one of the things that I do here, or try to every once in a while, when I notice another guy, one of my fellow men struggling a little bit, I'm like, you need to grab a beer? You want to get a cup of coffee? Let's grab a meal, whatever. Sometimes they take me up on it. Every once in a while they don't, but I like to believe that when they don't, they're like, oh, that's cool. Somebody's out there who's willing to listen if I need to, or when they're ready, right? Because we're not always ready to admit we're sucking at something, or we don't know how to fix it. I'll figure it out, you know, because that's one of the bad things I was taught as a young man, or growing up by my stepdad, is suck it up. You want something to cry about? I'll give you something to cry about. I think my mom taught me that too. But
yep.
And so we're taught to don't cry, suck it up, figure it out, right? And which, yeah, but you got guys next to you, you know. Ask them and have them figure it out. You got any advice closing for us?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know about that. This is your deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey.
I'm still learning from my mistakes.
Well, but that's where the advice comes from, right? Is the mistakes. You know, I have some formal education on it too, but I promise you, a lot of my advice comes from my mistakes. So, thank you, James, for your time, your story, sharing us, you know, a little bit who you are, where you're coming from, and hopefully those that take the time to watch will have, if anything, gained some comfort to know that, you know, we're all struggling a little bit with something, and that maybe you've got a buddy, you know, that's struggling too. Maybe the easiest thing you can do is check in on them, say, how you doing, brother? And then maybe they share a little bit with you, and then you share a little bit, and that develops comfort, right?
Yeah.
Now you know a little bit about me, I know a little bit about you, and we're probably a little more comfortable with sharing a little more the next time we need to, right?
Absolutely.
Thanks for watching, guys. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.